As Arsen already said, our team is responsible for 20% of the traffic. And we were thinking, how can we share the lessons and the experience we have so far by running on Filecoin? And then we distill this into 5 wishes we have for improving the developer experience for everybody who wants to build similar things as we do. We are Space Meridian. We have nucleated from Protocol Labs earlier this year. Patrick Woodhead, Julian Gruber, and me. Julian actually prepared this talk, but he couldn't join us here, so I'm presenting on his behalf. Yeah, and please, if I say anything that doesn't make sense to you, then maybe it's because we have little experience with Web3. We are still learning the ropes, and maybe we even make mistakes along the way. So feel free to come to me and correct me where we are wrong. Okay, having said that, what we are building. We started to build Filecoin Station, which is a desktop application, kind of like a Filecoin light node that allows more people to join the Filecoin economy without having to run heavy operations with expensive hardware and expensive staking. So we just install a desktop app, you start running some light jobs for the network, and you get rewarded. And it worked pretty well so far. We have like 15,000 nodes. But it also means that we are putting a lot of load on the RPC API providers, because that's the way how light nodes interact with the blockchain. So roughly every minute when we do a light task, we call the RPC API endpoint, Glyphs RPC API endpoint, and call Filecoin miner info to resolve miner ID, F0 something address, into their libp2p peer ID. Another frequent call we make is reading contract state, so that we can show to users what is their wallet balance and how much rewards they have accrued by running all these jobs. We made some lessons there about how often we can do this, and eventually we settled out to read this only 6 times per hour to get the right balance between updating it frequently enough but not overloading the RPC API too much. And so this is the biggest part of our network. Then alongside these light nodes, we have our centralized orchestration layer. We would eventually like to decentralize it, but hey, one step by a time. So we have Spark Publisher, which is a service which receives measurements or like retrieval results from all the checker nodes and batches them together, uploads them to IPFS, and then we take the CID and commit it to a smart contract. This way we have how to put it? This way, others can also take a look at what measurements were produced by the network, and then they can verify that we evaluated them correctly. And this happens roughly once per minute. Basically, as fast as we can write to the blockchain, we write. Then we have a set of Spark API nodes. This is a web service with multiple instances for scaling up. And it's polling contract events. So basically it's listening for smart contract events to know when a new round started or where a new measurement was published or other events. And right now we are using polling because if I remember correctly, the WebSocket or the filters were not working as great at the time. And then finally, we have the evaluation service, which is again polling for contract events. Then it processes all the data produced by the network and writes back to contract scores, basically evaluation, which node contributed how much impact and how much they should be rewarded for it. And this call is pretty expensive. If you just think about it, we have 15,000 nodes. So we need to, for each of those nodes, we need to submit a score. That's more than we can fit into a single transaction payload. So we have to do it in like 10 transactions. And then also the smart contract that's evaluating the scores to make sure they are valid, and then calculating rewards, updating its internal state is expensive. So this is the most expensive operation when it comes to gas fee. Right, so that's Spark and Station and how it interacts with Filecoin. And as we were building this, we discovered many issues. Some of them have been already fixed. Some of them are still present. One of the gripes we have is unreliability of other JSON RPC providers than Glyph. Yeah, thank you. Glyph works perfect. I wish everybody else offered such a great level of service. One issue is that not all RPC providers supported ETH methods, like ETH get logs or ETH subscribe to filter. So we were not able to use them. like at all. And then even for those which do support them, we had quality of service issues. So basically we said, all right, let's try to use 2 or 3 RPC providers and rotate between them when one of them starts to fail. And then eventually we ended up just using Glyph all the time. So we removed those other providers. And it would be really awesome if there could be more publicly available RPC providers which we could use. One reason is that we don't have resources to host our own provider. We would like for somebody else to do it who has more experience with it. And this is also not really decentralized. If all Filecoin users are using Glyph, then where is the centralization? We can use AWS, it's the same thing, right? All right, so this is the first wish I have. The second one is L1s can be expensive. The gas fee fluctuates sometimes, or most of the time it has been pretty cheap for us. So that's why we built everything on L1. But then there were like 4 or 5 periods in this year. Some of them took several days to a week when the gas fee was like 10,000 times more expensive. So for us, we were no longer paying microfill payments for each round, which happens every 20 minutes, but suddenly we were paying like several Filecoins per 20 minutes. So our bill would become like 1,000 fills per month just on gas fees. And we want to pay 1,000 fills in rewards to our users. So like we were left with nothing to pay. And as a small team, we don't have resources to deploy an L2 and run it ourselves. So again, it would be awesome if there was a publicly hosted L2, maybe an IPC subnet. This can be a vanilla FEVM node running on L2, rooted in L1 that we can use to run our smart contracts, and then every now and then roll up to the L1 to distribute the rewards. That would be awesome. And if it can have also Block Explorer and other tooling that would allow us to inspect what's going on, that would be even better. That's my second wish. The third one is improving the compatibility of Filecoin with Ethereum tooling. In our project, we're using Ethers.js, which is a JavaScript library for interacting with Ethereum smart contracts over RPC API. It works pretty well, but one thing which doesn't work that great is gas estimation. Ethers.js is optimized to estimate gas for Ethereum. On Filecoin, things work slightly differently, and we don't really have time nor expertise to try to figure out how to configure it ourselves. And it has a pretty bad consequence for us. Before we learned about this, maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, we were overspending like 6,000 times. So we were spending like 1,000 fill on gas fees, and we're like, all right, well, maybe this is how Filecoin works. And then somebody pointed out to us, hey, this transaction doesn't look right. Why you are spending so much on gas? You should set much lower gas fee. And then we're like, why nobody told us? Why we don't have any tooling that would tell us, are we overspending, underspending? And it turned out this was a bug in Ethers.js version v4, which had like hard-coded constant for how much gas would be used. And it was, of course, tailored to Ethereum, but on Filecoin, the gas fees were much smaller, but we didn't know. We upgraded to Ethers.js v5, which seems to work okay. It fixed the issue for us. But the underlying problem remains. We haven't found any good tooling that would tell us whether we are overspending or underspending or spending just the right amount. The good part is if you underspend, you will learn very quickly because your transactions get stuck. And then you had 600 transactions in the pool and mempool, and well, okay, that's a different story. But at least you know. And the last one is the problem with addresses. Like if you are new to Filecoin, you learn about the F1 address. That's what the wallets use. And then you install Filecoin Station and you get this F4 address because we cannot use F1 addresses with smart contracts. And now users are confused why I cannot send from my F4 address to Coinbase or Kraken. And like, what's going on? And then we tell them, oh, you need to use this fill forwarder contract. We implement this in our application, so we don't even need to know about it. But then they ask, hey, why is it so expensive? I thought transactions would be cheap. So this is kind of open-ended, but the user experience of working with F4 and F1 addresses could be improved to make it much more smooth for our users, so they don't need to understand the differences and pay the extra gas cost. And that's it. Thank you for the attention.
Yeah, of course. It's up to you because you have also another talk, no?
No.
Okay.
Hey, that was a great talk, Miro. Thanks for that meaty feedback. Just like one quick question. Could I ask you to like stack rank them, like in terms of most painful to least painful? If someone had to solve this, what order should they attack it in to make life easy for you and your users?
All right, I'm not sure if I can pinpoint the most pressing issues. There are, because it's all about trade-offs, right? Like with JSON RPC providers, as long as Glyph does the work great, then sure, that's fine. We are somehow somewhat centralized, but it's more about how much decentralized we want to be. So it's more at the philosophical level. If I look at L2s, maybe this would be the most pressing issues, because basically how we solve this is to move everything off chain. And then what's the point if we are off the chain? So maybe this would be really good improvement. And then definitely the gas estimation, or like just some diagnostic tool that will allow us to analyze our transactions and learn when we are overspending and underspending. And even better, have some tooling or a library that we can use for estimating the gas fees when we send a new transaction. I think that would be most useful. And especially a tool that can predict the spikes in the gas fees and somehow help us to cope with it.
And what about the F10X addressing? How painful is that for you? Is it like a nice to have, or would it really impact UX for your users?
It impacts the user experience for our users, especially for the non-technical users we want to get to join the Web3 economy. But it's kind of like a soft thing. Yeah, it's bad for UX, but we can educate the users and we can make it easier for them to a large extent, so they don't need to be aware of this. Yeah.
So gas fees is the number one.
Gas fees would be the top thing.
Cool. Thanks, Miro. More just a comment. I know you arrived in later, but I think you're a great target use case for what I understand Lava is going after.
Oh, cool.
Who is here, right? In terms of trying to decentralize a bit more of your RPC endpoints and not just having all your eggs in one basket.
Perfect.
So I just want to make sure you guys connect.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Hi. I know that the presentation was made by Julian. So maybe this is more directed to him, but my understanding, and unless this has changed like in the last few weeks, is that Filecoin Station is hitting like Berix, the API that we have, like really like a lot of times per second. For most of the things that you're describing here. So I mean, like JSON RPC, balance calculation, and my understanding is that also Julian had access to gas estimation and address conversion in Berix. And we have been kind of like exchanging emails like recently and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm very surprised if you had like some feedback because you still consider this as a problem when you're like using the like balance calculation and RPCs on Berix.
Yeah. All right. I don't remember all the details. I think we use Glyph RPC nodes for interacting with the smart contract, and we use Berix API to watch wallet transactions.
Yeah. For example, the thing when you say that you have to move to 6 times per minute, the thing was that our rate limit was that because you were hitting us like 500 times per second.
Yeah, maybe another.
So you were like hitting our rate limit, and we just increased that for you like for a certain time. So it was not a technical issue; it was more about like the load that you were like putting in. So maybe I was like curious if that changed somehow, or why that was the main topic of the presentation.
Oh yeah, all right. So the mistake we did, we were always updating the wallet state, even if the application was running in background and nobody was looking at the wallet balance. And that was creating a lot of load on Berix. And the fix was to update the wallet balance in the app only when the app is open and visible. And that removed most of the load. Yeah.
Just like a couple of things. I feel like we need to have a deep dive, like a follow up between your team and like few us as well later on. But like a couple points to make. The first one is like, I want to know what's not working with ETH-Filter API, because like you are still doing a lot of the state calls, like from my understanding, to get the deals and stuff like that. Normally, the event subscription exists for a reason, and we want to make sure it works so that you can get rid of the heavy costs and just using the more like, fire and forget. You listen to the event, you index that for your applications, and you move forward. So let's follow on. Let's make sure we follow up on that. The other thing is like, I also want to understand what kind of the native actor event we can add to the built-in market actors or Verifresh can help you making sure that you use event instead of this very expensive state cost, right? Because like from my understanding of your application is that you're still calling things like state market deals or things like that to index stuff. Super expensive, not cost efficient. Let's fix that. Adding event to the built-in actor from our understanding is very cheap, doesn't add too much gas to the cost. So I think those are the easy fix we can include in the future network upgrade that can benefit, honestly, many of the folks. RPC provider, yes. I love Glitch, as you know, but centralized RPC provider is not like great. I'm not saying you're centralized, but like you're one single provider. I think one thing that could help here is we are implementing fast finality as we speak, hoping to ship very soon next month. January, but since then, I feel like for the whole Filecoin ecosystem, we should really invest in to have a light client, so to allow like application like you folks can also run your own node to do index, not like fully support your infra, at least to do cross checking. Right, like or as a plan B or something like that. I think that's an effort we as a whole group should be investing in. On L2s, I need to catch up with IPC development, but just a food for thought is like there's like much better. The beauty of like a Filecoin to be EVM compatible is like a lot of the things we can just leverage the Ethereum developer community. One thing to consider is like it's so much easier to just spin up the L2 roll up kind of thing, like cheaper for like in the ETH gas fee sense to do the payment, right? Because I'm pretty sure they have like payment L2 built up already. For example, you can develop something that's like based on base chain, do the payment there, and then checkpoint to Filecoin. Maybe that's like one thing to consider, but like we can brainstorm a little bit on that. Last but not least, wallet addresses, pain in the ass, I know, but there should be a way to hide that from your user because we do have the F1 address to 0x address mapping. It's possible. It's not stable, but with F3 you can do that. I think we should think on that. That's all.
Yeah,
Thanks.
That would be awesome.
Okay, last question from me. Earlier you mentioned the L2s. It does take a lot of, it's a lot to run a whole L2, let's say on Filecoin. And we understand like block time is something that devs have been asking for a long time. You mentioned like one of the pain points were around like gas fluctuations. Like if you had gas, and so my question is, if you had gas estimation tooling available, would you still require an L2? Is it purely just the speeds that you're looking for? Well, what is an MVP and an L2 that you would actually need to fulfill?
Right. I guess the question is, what is the expected base gas fee for L1? If it's reasonable to expect that we should stay at the low levels and the fluctuations we have seen this year are an anomaly that will last for 5 days a year in total, then it's easier for us to keep running on L1. But if those high prices we saw are the new normal where the network should move so that it's sustainable for miners and everything, then we definitely need to go off L1 into L2 because otherwise we would be spending like thousands of fill on our transactions. And that's not viable.
Yes, like the gas fees are the main thing.
Gas fees, yeah.
Okay.
So how expensive it is and how predictable it is. And we think L2s would give us solution for both of that. Yeah, I know.
Just really one quick comment. Pan has been developing Filecoin.js.
You can catch me after and we can discuss it in the hallway track.